and Rory is here with us this evening. Now Rory, you will know, is from the Seed region, or originating from Points Pass or Acton, I'm told. You were educated in Tandragee, Rory, and Portadown. Correct me if I don't have this right. And you're a registered player for Banbridge. Okay, that's good. Now, I think we can all agree that he displays the greatest characteristics of leadership, which we want to encourage in our young entrepreneurs. And we can see these as being a strong mental attitude and positive thinking, calmness under pressure, and the ability to take others with him in the most difficult of circumstances. Rory has been the captain of Ulster and Ireland and has been selected to play for the British and Irish Lions. And he has won both Triple Crowns and Grand Slams. You can see I'm very familiar with all these rugby terms with Ireland. And amazingly, he's only just a smidgen over the age for this programme. I know it's very hard to believe. So this evening we're going to let you loosen Rory and to allow a series of questions to be asked. I think we have some questions already via Twitter, but we're also going to take some questions from the audience as well. And then after this we're going to have a short ideation camp, which is about the creation of completely new business ideas from amongst strangers. And at the end of this session, Rory will nominate his favourite. We also have 2 prizes to give away, a draw for a signed rugby shirt for those who booked online and attended this event, and a pair of Ulster rugby tickets for those who submitted a question via Twitter. So welcome, Rory. We are delighted to have you back in your home area, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say to us this evening. So we are very welcome, Rory.
Here in case stuff goes up. Thank you very much. Like I say, it's nice to be doing stuff local to me. I'm now originally from Acton, like I said, now living in Guildford, so it's very handy for me. I suppose when I was asked to do this, it's a great honour to be asked in your local area to come and speak to people, especially I suppose people with the get up and go to go and do something different, to try to start their own business, to try to go into what is, I suppose it's a fairly unclear world you're going into. You're not sure, you have a great idea, you're not sure how it's going to work, and you know, it definitely takes great courage to start your own business. So huge congratulations on that, and good luck with that. Obviously the title of sort of my bit is the business of sport. But I'm just going to talk to you briefly a bit about how rugby has changed. The business of rugby has changed, probably as much as anything, with the use of technology. Talk a bit about sort of what we do as rugby players, and then I suppose the other side of my life, which is sort of farming, and I suppose that the entrepreneur side of that, which would be mainly my father's business, but sort of how I came to do a little bit more to do with that than maybe I thought I would. I first started with Ulster in 2003, I think. It's a long time ago. Anyway, this is my 11th season with Ulster, and the game has changed massively for us since then. For example, back in that first season, we didn't start training with a team meeting, usually about 10:30 for maybe 15 minutes, maybe not even, and it'd be out on the pitch for an hour and a half, and then lunch. Waits at 2 o'clock, you'd be finished by 3. You know, so you'd be out the door at maybe 3, quarter past, depending on if you felt like doing a bit extra. Now the late start, it probably has to also be said, probably down to David Humphreys, who at the time was obviously the senior player we had. He had to drop the kids at school. He was living out near Bremore, didn't fancy coming in traffic, so he insisted that we didn't start till 10 or half 10, so sort of went from 10. It was, I suppose it was back then, it was really just the 2 sessions we did. We had one meeting, one pitch session, one weight session. We did that on Monday and Tuesday. We did a really light run out on a Thursday and travelled on a Friday. Generally, on away games, we travelled on sort of scheduled airlines. So Flybe were sponsors back then, and their main flights were, for our Wales games, we're into Birmingham and Bristol. So we'd have to fly there sometimes on a Thursday lunchtime, spend all afternoon travelling down to Cardiff or Swansea where we were, all day, hang around the hotel, and then we sometimes didn't get a flight until lunchtime on the Saturday. So for an 80-minute game, it was a long time away from home. It also, sort of back then, I suppose you sort of thought you were doing a bit, but you really weren't. There wasn't a lot done in to try to improve your game off the pitch. You did your extras afterwards, but it's only now when you look back, you realise probably how easy we had it back then. Because now, sort of over some 11 years later, like we really start the day at sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock. We have, for example, on a Monday morning, we have a senior players meeting first thing, so about 6 of us in that, and that'll be 7:30. Breakfast is on from sort of 8 to 8:30, and then we start just arranging meetings. So 8:30 will be a team review of how we did the week before. That'll usually last about half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on how things went. Then we go into the back, so clear off, and they don't really seem to do it a lot. Go and get a coffee or do something. And the forward, then we hit the gym for an hour, and then back into a forwards meeting. Then we go and do our units, and then eventually get to lunch, and then there'll usually be a strategy meeting after lunch, and then a team meeting into pitch. So generally for our days on a Monday and a Tuesday, we are 7:30. We probably get off the pitch at 4:30. So it's a fairly long day, and it's not as everyone seems to think that when you're a rugby player you really do very little, but I can assure you on Monday and Tuesday it's a fairly hectic days. There is also now a lot more pressure put on. There's windows given where they expect you to improve your skills. They video everything. Probably the best example is down with Ireland with Joe Schmidt, who's is arguably the best coach, or one of the best coaches in the world. When we go out to train for that sort of 80, 90-minute session, the camera gets turned on, but they just started a drone now, so this thing flying overhead watching us, but that doesn't, until the last person leaves, the cameras don't get switched off. So he probably takes it a step further in that he watches the extras we're doing to make sure we're doing it right and doing everything. So they really leave no stone unturned. But like I said at the onset, probably the biggest difference, apart from the sort of working hours and the expectancy to do a little bit more on the pitch, has been in technology. The three big areas that I see that there's been a big change in the sport of rugby is the sports code, which for those, I don't know if anyone does know, but it's basically a computer program that tracks all our stats on a game. So everything is broken down, so it's not just into your scrums, lineouts, attack plays. So everyone's ball carries, passes, ruck cleans, right, everything you can think of is tracked on a game. That's then put on the video, and then you're expected between the game on Friday and the meeting on Monday to have a look at that. They're using a system now, WeTransfer, I think it is, to say I'm not more worried this computer is going to break up, so technology I'm not that advanced. I know how to use the stuff, but it gets sent out just then on a Saturday, and by Sunday we have to look at it, or in my case you use the old Sky Plus box and you record the game and you watch it back yourself. But that is now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily used to drop players, but it's certainly used as a backup. They bring you in to help you improve your game. So when you go into a meeting now, it's not a bit of, oh, remember from the game you did this and this. It's, let me show you five or six clips as to what you're doing wrong. Here's what you're doing well. If you happen to find yourself in the unfortunate position of not being picked the next week, they will have, you can be guaranteed they'll have at least 6 or 8 clips as to why, and they go through that, and you might think you've had a good game, but when some of those stats go up, you get a bit of a rude awakening. So that has been, obviously, a massive advancement for us. Everything is tracked, our lines are running, they can fast forward, slow motion. They have 3 or 4 different angles in every game now, which has obviously improved our learning significantly. The other big one is in the gym. There's sort of a few bits of equipment, but the big one is it's a gym aware It's a little sort of device you attach to the bar when you're doing your weights, your speed and power weights, that tracks sort of your force generated, speed, power, all of this, and it all logs back through onto the computer system. So now we have TV screens up all around the gym, and it's continually updating on who's hitting scores, the leaderboard, the this, that and the other. And as much as anything, it tracks it straight onto a database for our strength and conditioning coaches. But for us as well, generally if you get to the top level of anything, whether it's your business or sport, you're usually fairly competitive. So when you see someone in your position getting a decent score, you go onto the bar and you try to do a wee bit more. Even at my age, you still try to beat some of the young fellas. It doesn't often happen, but we do try. And then probably the third, there's lots of things, but the big thing, probably the single biggest thing that has come about the last few years has been GPS. You probably see them in the back of some of the shirts. It's a wee unit, so it looks like a small matchbox nearly, tucked into the back. So I can guarantee it's not a packet of cigarettes or a matchbox. It is actually a unit that is of some use. And this now, it's really revolutionised our pre-season. It used to be they had set things that they need to do. So we used to come in for pre-season fitness, and it used to be run until somebody was sick. That was generally the right. They've done enough, let's take them off the pitch. Now they track everything with meters, speed, high speed running, meters per minute. So they've all this sort of tracked, so that they know from the game data from last year, because we were at the game, so they'll know, say for example for me, Rory needs to learn to run at an average of 75 metres per minute for the 80 minutes. So once we do our fitness sessions and you're getting well above those numbers, then they're going, look, yeah, you're probably ready to go back and play. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is if you're not quite hitting those numbers, you have another few weeks of sort of struggle ahead of you. But they've now taken that a step forward. It's not just the speeds and the metres covered now with the scrums. It measures the impact. So now we're going into our scrum meetings and they're able to tell us, so the sync times between a front row, for example, they can say that 1, 2 and 3 hit, and there's a difference of point. We're trying to get below 0.01 of a second sync time. It's all a bit of technical jargon, but they can measure all of this, and they can measure the force now in G's. So I think last week in the Cardiff game, I think as a front row, we put 26.5 G's through the scrum, and I think about 20 of that came through me, which is what we want to do. We want to go through the middle of it. I'm led to believe that's something similar to 2 car crashes, or I don't know. It doesn't definitely feel like a car crash, but, well, until the next morning. But that is sort of where rugby is really developed. It's obviously a business because we have to generate income, but you generate income by performance. You ask our marketing team 5 years ago when we struggled to win a game, sponsors were probably hard to come by. Now we are doing reasonably well. We've reached a couple of finals. We haven't just quite went across the line and won something yet, but every day there seems to be a new bit of boarding or a new bit of sponsorship, or, I apologise for being late, but Hughes Insurance have just come on board and named one of the stands at Ravenhill. So this is all developing, and while they still have their work to do to sort of entice businesses in, we feel that if we get the adequate support as a rugby business, we perform on the pitch, people want to be a part of it. It's the same on any business. If you give somebody a product that they want to be involved in, they even feel good to be involved in, it'll come round full circle, and it'll hopefully generate income, which is what we see. I suppose in terms of the entrepreneur side and the small business side, it's sort of, it'll probably be a bit rich for me to stand up here and preach to you about small business and how great it is. Whenever, we're lucky, we're contracted. So our contracts are usually a minimum of a year. We try to avoid the year contracts, but the average probably 2, some sign 3, some are even lucky enough to sign 4-year contracts. So we have that little bit of a luxury in that we are contracted. We have a guaranteed salary coming in for the duration of that contract, which obviously it leaves a bit of financial planning a little bit easier. But having said that, the contracts, and probably more so recently, have been largely incentivised on performance basis, especially unfortunately when you get to the other side of 30. As I've found, they really try to push hard to put as much as that contract incentivised to get you on the pitch. So from that side of things, there is still a little bit of uncertainty, but the flip side of that is that there's massive reward for just getting your head down, working hard, and try to be better. You try to be better, you get more games, you get win bonuses obviously, but you also get your appearance fees, which kind of increases your salary, which is ultimately what we're all here to do. We all want to make a bit of money so we can be comfortable. Just sort of before I go on to touch on a bit of the farming side of things, I suppose the one big thing that I would take from a rugby career, when hopefully there's still a bit left in it yet, but the one big thing I take from it is the importance of teamwork. I've talked about incentivised contracts and win bonuses and this, that, the other. It's all largely irrelevant because it comes down to not just what I do, but what I do affects what the guys either side of me do, and ultimately what they do affects what I do. So teamwork is so important. It's important that I can trust the people next to me. Take a rugby context, in defence, I have to come off the line and trust that the guys either side of me are doing the same. Because if I come up on my own, that leaves a dog leg in defence and someone can come through it. If they fly off on their own, it's vice versa. So our success or lack of, as might be the case, it's all down to teamwork. It's something that, it's obviously rugby and sport, so there's that element of it is a sport at the end of the day, so there should be enjoyment, but we put a lot of time and effort in our various committees that we form, and we try to put a bit of money into it to sort of generate a good social scene, a good sort of environment that people are happy to be involved in, people want to be involved in, and ultimately if you can get, or certainly I found from captain's side, if you can create an environment where people want to spend an extra hour, half an hour even there, or even around lunch, spend a bit more time with each other, it has a knock-on effect that people get to know each other a little bit better, people trust each other a bit more, and we've seen massive benefits, not just in the whole feel of the place around Ulster, but also in the performances on the pitch. People will, certainly from a rugby point of view, people will go that extra mile on the pitch to make sure that everyone succeeds. And that, from our point of view, it might be somebody who thinks they're absolutely exhausted, getting off the ground and getting to the defensive line whenever they could have just lay there for another 2 or 3 seconds, which 2 or 3 seconds in the game of rugby can be a big difference, and it can mean the difference between winning or losing sometimes in those big games. So for me, the teamwork is absolutely vital, and I'm sure you guys will be able to tell me better your own business experience, but it really is vital to have a good working relationship with the people on a level with you, but also those above and below you, and probably as much as anything, those below you. So the guys that are playing in rugby are always happy. The guys that aren't playing are the ones that you have to keep an eye on and make sure that they're still towing in the same direction as you are. But we sort of talked about the luxury of having the contracts, albeit short term, but it was the issue of that then is that rugby's unfortunately very short term, and I look back in the last 11 years and it's literally gone like that. It has gone in a flash, and it is now time that my rugby career is unfortunately the wrong side of the hill. As I say, I still have a good few years left in me, hopefully at the top level, but certainly I'll not have another 11 years. I can't see me standing here as a 45-year-old telling me how great it is to play rugby. Unfortunately, I think I'd be in all sorts of pain. But it means that we have to make sure we plan for the future. I was lucky, unlucky, whatever way you want to look at it. In 2009, I had quite a serious neck injury, which at one point sort of threatened my career. I thought I was going to have to retire, which was quite a shock to deal with. I sort of tried to get on with it and tried to find the positives that it wouldn't necessarily. But my family, and especially my wife, caused tears and, what if this is over? And it sort of made me realise that rugby is short term. You're one big hit away from having to hang up the boots. And if you hang the boots up, especially some of the young guys that are coming in now, they're coming in straight from school and they think that, oh, should I pick up the education later on? They're trying to do university part-time and then they go, nah, don't have time for that. So they could potentially get a bad injury and leave with nothing. Because I was lucky enough to finish my degree in agriculture before I got my first contract. I graduated the summer that I started with Ulster. But in 2009, when this injury came about, I sort of had a bit of a sit down with my dad and thought, right, well, look, let's start to plan a bit for the future. I'm not going to take my eye off the ball in terms of trying to get back to play and play at the highest level again, but I wouldn't mind getting something else in place. Obviously, agriculture is a family background. It's also what I studied. So in 2009, myself and my dad started to buy some cattle. Started off, we bought 4 or 5. I actually bought 2 at the first sale, and a couple of months later bought another 4 or 5. Since then we've grown it. We've got 60 females now and 3 bulls, and it's definitely not a money maker for me at the minute, but it's something that I really enjoy. It gives me a nice release from rugby. You can get too sort of focused on rugby, and at the end of the day, the life, I have a family, a young family, and I love the farming, and everything just, you go out, you go home, you see the kids, or you go out on the farm, and it's a bit of a reality check for you that, yeah, rugby's great, but it's not the be-all and end-all, and you need a balanced life. So from that point of view, that has hopefully sort of started to open another door, which, like I say, I don't want to walk through quite yet, but at some stage I'm fully aware that I will have to. And I would see my future, if there's no rugby involvement for me in terms of coaching or some kind of role there, which you can't rely on it, then farming is definitely where I want to be. And even if there is a job offer in rugby after I finish playing, I'm not sure that I would take it anyway. In terms of the farming side of things, that's obviously something that I can comment a little bit. I've been away from it, and it's hard to sort of juggle everything. I try to do a bit. But from my dad has really farmed since he was 21 when he left university. His father before him was an auctioneer, estate agent, sort of bought some land, farmed it a bit, farm manager, sort of a bit of a wheeler dealer really. And he sort of he bought the farm, and really Dad has grown it ever since. And I suppose in terms of, he's definitely self-employed, and in terms of being an entrepreneur, it's something you don't really look at as a farmer. How can you be an entrepreneur? But whenever I was doing a bit of work for this and sitting down and thinking about it, he's not just a farmer, and it's something that both me and my brother, we want to follow his footsteps. Yes, we want to farm, but you look at over the last number of years, when farming's got tighter, I've seen our farm change dramatically. We still do the day-to-day. Big arable is our main enterprise, but we also now have an AD plant in the planning process. We have a big green waste plant where the councils pay us a gate fee to bring in the green waste. We sort the plastic out of it, shred it down, compost it, and then spread it in the fields. We grow some willow now to feed our wood chip burner that is now supplying free heat to my brother's house. I'm complaining about that, but I didn't see free heat at anyone else's house. But let's say free heat in inverted commas. And then we also had the paintball enterprise that we started up in the wood of the house, which is subsequently, I suppose, when the recession hit, people had less money probably to go on these team building things, so that has subsequently went. But there were just a couple of different examples of how we branched out to try and get over the fact that farming was going through a tough time. My dad still tells a story that when he took over the farm, it obviously split between, he has 2 brothers, 2 sisters, so split between them. His dad passed it on, and he decided he would buy them all out, and he still says he remembers going to the bank to get the loan, and at that stage the interest rate had just ticked on to 15%, and he said he remembers just sleepless nights wondering how is he ever going to be able to repay these loans, what's he going to do, how is he going to explain it to my mum or his wife, that we're out in the street and that this is all because of farmland. But he put the head down, he persevered, and I think we're lucky as children that we're sort of benefiting from a lot of sleepless nights, which I'm sure I don't need to tell maybe a lot of you guys about it, but it's just nice to see that it isn't just a farm, he's an entrepreneur, it's a business, and come through a lot of tough times, and now we've got the farm in a position that he feels very happy that Simon, my brother's at home now, and that he would feel happy that I could come home and farm as well, and he's built it up to a position where the two of us could run it, which is obviously, you probably don't think about it until you actually take a step back and actually look at what he's done. But I've probably rambled for enough. I'm sure there'll be probably a bit more questions with the more interesting side of the actual rugby as opposed to me trying to tell you about the business of rugby. But thank you very much for your attention. Like I say, good luck in whatever you're going into, big, small, or whatever. I've really enjoyed doing a bit of research to come and speak to you, and I just good luck to everyone in the future, and thanks again.
So what we're going to do is we've got a few questions which were tweeted in, and we're going to ask one or two, but after those are asked, I invite the audience really to ask really whatever questions you want, be it business, entrepreneurship, and I can say as a Jervis Pass man, I don't live that far away from Acton. Rory's been very modest about his family. They're one of the most successful entrepreneurial families in the area. So many years ago when I finished my dissertation, his dad was good enough to answer 4 questions for my dissertation, and also very generous to the community. So I think he's been excessively modest there. But anyway, the first question that we had from that was tweeted was, can you tell us about captaining the Lions and about your experience on that tour?
Yeah. It's probably easier to talk about business than that tour, to be honest. Obviously, captain the Lion, it's been just over a year now, so you can it still hurts to look back on it. The captain the Lion is a massive honour, and I'm hoping in a few years that people will remember that tour. That everyone remembers it for it being a successful winning Lions tour, but hopefully to that stage they'll have forgotten that the game I captained we lost and really didn't play that well in. Like I say, it was a huge honour, but it was mixed emotions, because when they named that team, it kind of felt like they weren't really bothered about the game. They'd rested all the test players, which is fair enough, but they put a lot of the guys who were probably in the test bench on the bench for that game. They brought, I think we had probably 5 or 6 players that played that night that had only turned up on the Sunday night to play on the Tuesday night. So from that side of things, we talk about teamwork and really earning that trust. And there's no way you can earn that trust, no matter how good the players are in 3 days. So from that side of things, it's very disappointing. That Lions tour was a real mixed bag. It was a real roller coaster from the first initial selection whenever I wasn't in, and that kind of felt like a bit of a public humiliation, really, because everyone expected to be there. All of a sudden it wasn't. People were offering sympathies, but at the end of the day, it's so hard when you put yourself up there to have such a massive disappointment to pick yourself up. And it really was the game the following. That happened on the Tuesday. The following Friday to go back to Ravenhill and to get the reception I got from the crowd sort of made me realise that, okay, maybe I'm not the Lions selector's cup of tea, but I'm obviously doing something right to get this reception from probably 12,000 there that night. So that sort of got me a wee bit back on track. The management and the players were all brilliant. And then to get the phone call to say that I was going, obviously then went from having lost the final the day before, so went from here thinking I was going, to there at the selection, to get in the final, to lose the final, to back the Lions. It was a real up and down. And then I almost feel now, and I was looking back on it, that it was probably mentally just too much for me. I'd like to think I'm reasonably mentally strong and mentally resilient, but I think by the time I got out there, I've been up and down too many times, and I really just struggled to play the best rugby, and that's probably the biggest regret that I have from that tour. Yes, I can say I played for the Lions, the captain of the Lions, which in years to come will be a massive honour for me, but while I'm still playing top level rugby and while the memory's still quite fresh for me, it's still very much tainted. It still feels very much disappointment that I didn't really do myself justice out there.
think, again, very modest of you. We were all very impressed. So I'm going to let the audience ask 1 or 2 questions here. So does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask?
Rory, both in business and sport, leadership is a quality that's self-defined. Could you describe to me how you see leadership from your point of view? What qualities do you call on in yourself as a leader?
Yeah, I think definitely, sort of saying, obviously in my opinion, I think leadership is something that is very different, unique to everyone. People lead different ways, and within rugby I've experienced different captains who go about things in different ways. I suppose from my point of view, it's about, doing all the right things. When we get on that training pitch, it's about trying to set a standard, and trying to set a standard that people can follow, and that people want to follow. It's something that this year, probably from having those couple of year break with Captain Ulster, sort of assessed a few things. And this year, I was adamant that I personally would pick the senior players, if you like. So we picked another 5 players who sit a tier below, and they're guys that I would get on well with, but guys that are respected. And I had put a lot of, talk everything through to them, but also put a lot of pressure on them to go, look, when we're training, if the 6 of us can all set a really good standard, I guarantee you there's enough people that are easily influenced in our squad that everyone will follow. So for me, it'll be setting an example. Obviously, we have to speak a bit in rugby, and it's just to make sure. I remember my dad always told me that it's not easy sometimes with some of our players, but to try not to swear that much whenever I'm trying to make a point on the rugby pitch. And like I say, they do. Some of our players definitely do try your patience, and you want to scream and swear at them, but it's try to be precise with the points. So every time I try and speak, I try to be precise with the points, keep them to as few as possible. But the biggest key one for me is just to set an example and try to lead that example.
Thank you.
Anybody else got? Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're a little bit there, but sometimes I find it's quite isolating. You're kind of out down the road, and it's not kind of the same for yourself. Being in a team situation, but I know sort of 2 years ago it was quite a tough Six Nations for Ireland. The line out was one of the big things. There's a lot of finger points and things like that. There's more to a line out call than just a focus on the ball in, but I'm sure it must be quite isolating for you. How do you go through that?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's really can be very difficult. I've talked to all about the good points and all the teamwork and the team stuff, and everyone gets together. And when you're winning, it's brilliant. I mean, things are going well. Everyone's your friend. But when people's backs are against the wall, you can feel very isolated. That Six Nations, when the lineup doesn't go well, it's the one play, it and goal kicking are the 2 moments where you're the only person that can affect where it goes. You're standing there, and there's a few elements and stuff, but in terms of, I know whenever I've thrown it well, and sometimes, especially that Six Nations, there's a few ones that I felt that I wouldn't throw any differently. They just marked it up well. But for me, whenever you get in that position, and after the Lions selection is exactly the same time, whenever you do feel, everyone tries to sympathise with you, but you do feel very much alone. I put a lot of stock into the mental side of the game for me, so mental preparation. And when I look back now at that particular Six Nations and the tail end of that particular season, I've probably gone away from it a little bit. Whether it was I was telling myself so much on, I couldn't get time to do it. And I cut a few corners. I've done all the practicing, but I practiced without purpose at times, and I haven't done enough of the mental side of things. And it's something that now I find the more I can rehearse it in my head, especially the line-outs, the more I can rehearse it in my head, the less you need to do physically to a certain extent. I'll still do quite a bit of practice, but then it also builds up a bit of a mental resilience, and that's as a rugby player, and I know that in business it's different because it can just be you on your own for long periods, but the road player, if you can try to build up that mental resilience, you'll always be knocked down and people will always try to have a go at you. But there's a side of that whenever you bounce back and do well, I suppose last Six Nations and last summer tour when we had the best line out in the competition and we went 100% in 2 tests in Argentina who were a decent line out. There's an even greater satisfaction whenever you can cross that bridge and come out the other side whenever everyone's questioning you. And that's sort of something that, like I said earlier, being competitive, I try to stick it to as many people as I can whenever I get the chance to. But definitely the mental side of things would be, if you can try to keep a clear head, was that saying, you can keep a clear head and all around you is losing it, you're going to be in a really good place.
I know the answer to this, but who's the best player you've ever played with?
Played with. I suppose obviously the obvious one is Brandon Driscoll. It wasn't just, you probably on the TV probably saw about a tenth of what he could do. In the training pitch when there wasn't any pressure on, some of the stuff he did and got away with and stuff was just incredible. But he was also naturally talented. But what probably set him apart from, or what sets that sort of top percentage of players that go on to get past sort of 20, 30 caps for their country and really push on, is his work ethic, constantly trying to get better. But more so when you get into a game, you can change a game with one move. But the biggest thing, and I remember a couple of instances where, against France, I remember a pro part, and somebody's going for the corner, and he comes from nowhere and has no right to be there, and make a try save and tackle in the corner, and that just gives you a lift to know that. He probably wasn't the fittest guy about, but he just had a will to win. He's never beaten, never out of it, and that's infectious, and that sort of goes back to a bit of the leadership. He didn't really inspire, well, he inspired you a bit before he said, but he more inspired you with his actions, and little moments like that where he just went, well, what, if he can pick himself off the ground to do that, then maybe I can give a bit more as well.
Any other questions?
Rory, you gave your guidelines for the development of Ulster setup from a player's perspective. I suppose you're uniquely positioned then as an entrepreneur within that setup to sort of think about how Ulster have gone about rebranding and re-establishing itself over the last 2 years. Just wonder if you'd talk a bit about how they've done that and how successfully you think they're doing it.
Yeah, I think obviously with a couple of big examples are, there's obviously a lot more sponsors on our kit and stuff now, but like the Kingspan Stadium, that photo that I have today, it's now the huge family stand. These things are, I know a lot of die-hard supporters, and like we've got a lot of criticism. We have to use it anyway. We have to call it the Kingspan Stadium, which I have no issue with at all. At the end of the day, they're investing money into our business, and a lot of that money is going into our academy and our youth structure. So, while it may not necessarily affect me directly by the time they come through, but it could also be in a very strong position, hopefully for years to come. You look down the road in Leinster, they were successful 5 or 6 years ago, really, really successful, but they're still successful because they are just bringing through a conveyor belt of young players after players, and unfortunately you need money to do that. And so the likes of the Kingspan Stadium, it's a substantial amount of money, and that is ultimately, as I say, money makes the world go round. And as a player, most of us are fully aware and educated on this is what we need, this investment into the future of Ulster. And there are a lot of things, in terms of the advancement that we think we should be handed everything on plate. And certainly the top players and that senior player panel, we're regularly updated on where things are from a marketing point of view, and that we need you to come to the Bank of Ireland to do X, Y, and Z. So your day off, it might be a pain in the backside, but look, they're a big sponsor, we need to look after them. And from a player's point of view, if you can be educated in that and the importance of that, then the PR events, which can be a bit of a torture, you realise what they're for, and that's ultimately is to generate business, to get our business moving. Everyone, look, I referenced us back sort of 5 or 6 years ago when we couldn't win a game. All of a sudden, David retires, he starts to drum up a bit of business, he gets a bit more money from the RFU, We signed 2 or 3 good players. We have one really good season, and everyone sort of starts to come on behind that. Now, like we lost 13 players last season, and everyone said, and 2 coaches, and everyone said we're done. Yet, because we had that conveyor belt coming behind, it's not as good as we want it to be, but it's getting there, and that is sort of all down, but mostly down to a lot of hard work by the coaches, obviously, but generating money through sponsorship and through PR events by the players. And obviously, the player is the marketable player, or marketable product within Ulster.
I've just got one last Twitter question here, Rory. Do you think Ireland can repeat their success in the Six Nations this year?
I think it's going to be tough, whenever you win it. I know from previous years, whenever another team won it, they're the team you want to beat. So we're going to win that championship, and teams that we beat, we're going to think that we got lucky against them, they beat us. The like of England, who lost out points difference, are going to go we beat them last year. So, all we have to do is beat them, and the rest will follow. So it puts a bit of a marker on your back. The big thing for us is obviously first and foremost the 3 tests in November. We want to set down a marker by beating 2 of the top teams in the world. If we can beat Australia and South Africa, it puts us in a really good position going into the Six Nations. But sort of Joe has already vaguely mentioned it, probably more to the senior player group down in Ireland, that it sets out a big statement if we can retain the Six Nations next year going into a World Cup. It's not the be-all and end-all. There are examples, probably us in Wales last year, our last World Cup, where we didn't perform that well in the Six Nations, but did really well in the World Cup. But when you look back historically, the team that wins or does really well in the Six Nations inevitably is the Northern Hemisphere team that gets to the semi-final. So we're fully aware of that, and we know it's going to be a massive challenge, but we're really working towards that goal of trying to repeat. And obviously we're very greedy, so we want a Grand Slam this time instead of a championship.
Very good. I think we should put our hands together. I'm going to ask you just to stay for a few minutes because we've got a draw for a signed rugby jersey. You haven't signed it yet, Rory. Hopefully you will. But I'm going to say that I'm not going to do a presentation, and we were going to do an ideation, but I think the most in the room, it's not really suited, so I'll just change the plan on that if it suits everyone. And I'm just going to say what this programme is about, where it started, what we've achieved, and where it's going to. So this programme started in April 2013. We had no branding. There was no knowledge out there of what we were trying to achieve. It was put together through Paul Kavanagh and the council. That being Paul put a tremendous amount of work into it, as well as Nicola Wilson. And over a 6-month period, we got it branded, got it out there, and started to promote. The goal is to reach 720 young entrepreneurs. To date, we've reached around the 250 mark. We have a lot to do, and it finishes next June. But in that space, we have also recruited. We're about to recruit our 60th business for what's known as the expand phase, and that is businesses in operation. So 30 young people who started that programme, not in business, have actually started their business, and currently we feel the employment is around the 35-36 mark. So it's achieved a lot. So if any of you who are interested here in starting a business, or actually have a business and want to come onto the programme, be our guest. If you know other people who could avail of this assistance between 18 and 29, also let them know about it. We would love to. It's practically free. There are elements that there's some payment for, but believe me, it's a nominal sum of money. So if you know anyone who's interested or could avail of it, please let us know, and we'd be happy to accommodate them. So, Christopher, we've done a random draw. Believe me, we just picked out a number of random. So, someone here this evening has won a signed rugby jersey. So, have you got the name there? Can you remember what the name was? Chris, a difficult question. So, Trey, you could Richie Smith. Richie Smith. thought we'd give a presentation.
Don't need to ask you to look proud. Thank you.
So, Paul, would you like to say a word or two, or should we just wrap up with that?
Well, just very briefly,
This is the biggest rugby fan
I'm not a win, it's just appeared in the last couple of years when you suggested it coming around. It's good to see you all here tonight. As Paul said, we got some funding to be able to deliver this help to people who are under 30 and want to start a business, or who are under 30 and have a business and you'd like to expand it. And it doesn't matter if you haven't been, if you're already on an existing business, and I know at least 2 people in the room who are into that category. If you want to expand it,